Welcome everyone to another mod spotlight, and today we are gonna cover a mod called TubeStuff, a mod that is in almost every mod pack, but nobody really knows it by name, and today we shall change that and have a closer look at each individual block and what it actually does. Let's dive right into it. This first block right here is called the buffer. Its purpose is to buff items while they're traveling from A to B, but it can also be used as an intersection between buildcraft pipes and rep power tubes. Now this block can even output a redstone signal, and this is where it gets really interesting, because we can simply hook up a buildcraft wooden pipe, make sure the pipe connection is pointing the right way, and whatever items we place in here, depending on how full it is, it will output a redstone signal. The slowest is 5 seconds, which we've just seen. If it is full, it will be 0.5 seconds, and you can see you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to add any machinery or gates. This will be simply pulled out. Same thing applies to rep power, but you cannot simply hook up the pneumatic tubes. There has to be something like a filter in between, but you don't have to hook up a redstone signal. It will do that by itself. Simply put that in here, and for only one slot full, it will take 5 seconds, output the redstone signal, and there you have it. Very useful. The next machine right here is the automatic crafting table Mark II. Now this guy is freaking hilarious. I have hooked up a few buffers around it just to demonstrate the input sides. All of the sides are the input, including the one that I left free connected to the first 4 rows of this inventory. Here you store your materials, and the inputs are specific, so one side may only occupy 1 row. The last row right here, shaded a little bit red, is used as an output for things like empty buckets. So if you use in your recipe a full bucket, empty buckets will go into this output slot. Now if this is full, any further buckets will be destroyed, so keep that in mind. Now there's a few ways to set up your recipe. First of all, you can simply set it by placing the items in there, and it will be only a picture of the item. You saw it didn't use any of those wooden planks. Now you will not see the end result just yet. You will see it once you input some items and it crafted the first item. You can actually see it, and you can also take it out. Now you can take it out simply by taking it out like a normal crafting table, and if you have any more materials in there, it will automatically recraft every time until it runs out of materials. The other way of pulling items out is actually to use a filter or a transposer, give it a redstone signal. Right now this chest is empty. If I give it the redstone signal, it should contain 4 sticks. Very nice. There's also other means of setting up recipes. For instance, you can go in your NEI, check the recipe for TNT, and you click this question mark and it will automatically import it. Very nifty function. There's 3 more buttons that I shall explain to you. The first one is the clear button that will clear your recipe. You don't have to do this manually. There's also a toggle button between crafting 1 item or 64. And it will always try to recraft 64 if you leave it in this mode. Very handy. There's also a OR dictionary button. This is used in order for recipes. If you are in the mod pack and have different kinds of copper, you can for instance craft one of these uninsulated copper cables, and you will hit this OR dictionary button and you can see the recipe changed, and it is switching between all the different ores that are in the mod pack. That is very useful. You don't have to set it up for each ore individually. Next up we have the black hole chest with an awesome texture and some particle animation. If it lags your computer, you may disable this in the configs. But let's have a look into it. This chest can hold an infinite amount of items. The way this works is once you've filled up one page like that, it will create a second page. So you cannot switch to the third page before we have filled this up. So it is not very useful in terms of ordering your items, but for instance to store an infinite amount of cobblestone, it is very useful. I think it also sorts itself, so if we go right here, put that here, you can see it always goes to the first available slot. It will not leave any slot free. Furthermore, it cannot be crafted if you don't enable it in the configs, because it is considered an OP block. It is way too overpowered for the vanilla gameplay, but if you want, you can enable it, and I think there is also a crafting recipe then. The next two items are the Incinerator and the Liquid Disposer. Those two guys are simply used to destroy and get rid of your items for good. For instance, if we put that bucket in here, give me some space here, and let that run through, the item will be destroyed with the Incinerator. Same thing happens with the Liquid Disposer. If I put in some liquid there, it will go into the void and vanish. These two guys are the cheaty items of this mod. They cannot be used in survival mode as far as I know. They can only be spawned in if you are an OP or in single player. And they will make sure that you have an infinite amount of whatever item you want. The way this works is you place an item in there and you can specify an amount. I could also put in 64 stone, for instance, and whenever I enable this filter, it will give me 64 stone. Right now it will only give me 1 stone per redstone signal, and it will just keep doing that forever and ever and ever. And this is why you cannot, of course, craft it in survival. Same thing right here, but with liquid. So we have the, I think it's called the item duplicator and the liquid duplicator. And liquid, just put a bucket of whatever liquid you want in there and hook up a tank. I hooked up a simple gate to pull the water out of there. And it is basically an unlimited water source. Now, of course, with water, that doesn't make a lot of sense because you get an infinite source anyways, but you can do this, I believe, with any type of bucket. Next up, we have the Retrievulator. Oh, geez. This guy is used in combination with a retriever. It can also be done with a filter, but retriever just makes more sense. This guy can be used in order to keep a specific amount of materials in this T section into an adjacent inventory. So I will always have a stack of dirt in here. I can remove, for instance, one item, and it will output a redstone signal whenever it feels like it. It will probably wait for a few seconds because it realized that it didn't have to do anything previously, so the redstone impulses get shorter. And now that it is full, it placed one of these retriever jammers inside the retriever to make sure the system stops. Right, oh geez. Now the retriever has to face with its output side towards this big hole, and right here is the output, for instance, for a chest, or it can also be any other type of inventory. The retriever needs to be in this mode for it to work, and if we place this out, it will every now and then give a redstone signal, and when it realizes that it has to do a lot of work, it will the redstone signals will become more frequent. I think it is very intelligent and making sure you don't have to hook up redstone signals that tick every 2 seconds and don't do any work, just produce lag. Like that. So it will speed up over time, I believe. Just make sure that you always have your item. You can see the redstone impulses already get shorter, and it will keep filling up until it is full. Then it will attempt to do so, and it will realize it cannot do so and put in a retriever jammer. This is very intelligent, I have to say. Very lag friendly. Or lag unfriendly. No lag friendly. One thing I forgot to mention is this left inventory right here. This will interact with the retriever and put in, for instance, in our case, the dirt whenever we need it. So we will have to specify at least one item in the same slot according to the dirt. So if we, for instance, also want to keep some wood in here, let's say 32, and we have to define this right here in the same slot, so it can interact with the retriever and put in the items accordingly. Next up, we have the block breakers. Now, this is one of the best versions of block breakers I have ever seen. I just love the mechanics and the realism behind it. Namely, you will have to place in your tools. They will take time, just like a player, in order to break the block. You will have to put in a specific tool, and it will also use durability. Very nice. The way you place them is simply make them face, I think they face into the direction you're looking, and you can place in whatever tool you want. And there you have it. Now, if we place a block in front of this guy, and I'm going to take a stone block for the pickaxe, it will simply spit it out. Now, unfortunately, there's no way, at least I didn't figure out a way to hook up anything in order to automatically collect it. You will have to use a transposer, for instance, that will be able to collect materials or items that are on the floor. Now you can see I used a pick right here. If I place my dirt right here, the pick of course will also take the same length a player would take in order to destroy the dirt. But the shovel right here will be much quicker, but it cannot destroy the stone, of course. It will also not yield a stone, at least it shouldn't. Yeah, awesome. I just love that. And the durability of the items are used up, as you can see. Now this little guy right here is called an online player detector. This is very useful for servers, I have to say. If you want machines to not run, or machines to run while you're offline or while you're online or whatever, you will have to use one of those blocks. This guy will output a redstone signal for as long as I am online in the map in the world. And whenever I go offline, the redstone signal will shut off. Isn't that freaking brilliant? Yes, it is. And just as a side note to avoid questions, the player that placed the block is the one that the block detects. Last but not least, this mod makes it possible to condense several ores also from other mods into blocks. So you may have been making some of those blocks and not even knew that this was actually implemented by TubeCraft. We have blocks such as silver, tin and copper that I believe are also in the other mods. And if you are using those mods together, then one of the mods or the blocks is disabled, so you cannot craft both of them. We also have the nickelite and redstone. Those are like gravel and sand. They will actually fall to gravity. We have the coal block right there. We have blue alloy and red alloy from Red Power. And finally, the brass block. Alright guys, so you can see only a few blocks can make such a big difference. I didn't even know about some of them, and I will definitely use them in the future. Other than that, this has been it for today's Mod Spotlight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a like or comment or even a suggestion for a future Spotlight that I could do. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great time. Bye bye.